Lord Byron's stomach rumbled. It was a sound that echoed through the quiet morning, a reminder of the hunger that gnawed at him. He had been up since dawn, attending to various matters, and now, finally, he could think of nothing but breakfast. He could almost smell it. The tantalizing aroma of freshly baked quiche filled the air, teasing his senses and making his mouth water. It was his favorite, a recipe perfected by his chef over the years. The aroma of his favorite quiche wafted from the kitchen. He straightened his cravat, ensuring he looked impeccable. Today was not just any day, it was a day that required his utmost attention and presence. A most important day lay ahead. Meetings with influential figures, decisions that could shape the future, and yet all he could think about was the quiche waiting for him. He would need his nourishment. The day promised to be long and arduous, and a hearty breakfast was essential to keep his energy up. A knock on the door. It was a sound that Byron had come to associate with interruptions, and this morning was no different. "Yes?" Byron called out, already halfway to the dining room. His steps quickened, eager to reach his breakfast. "A phone call, my lord," the butler Jarvis announced, his voice a low timbre. "It appears urgent." Byron's heart sank. He knew what that meant, another delay. Byron paused, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. He had hoped for a few moments of peace, but it seemed fate had other plans. "Very well. I shall take it in the study." His voice was calm, but inside he seethed with frustration. He turned on his heel and made his way to the study. "See that my breakfast is kept warm." He instructed Jarvis, hoping that the call would be brief. The call was brief if unwelcome. It was a matter that could have waited, but in his world, urgency was often a matter of perspective. Business as usual, cutting into his personal time. Byron sighed. It was a constant battle, balancing his responsibilities with his own needs. At least his quiche awaited. The thought brought a small measure of comfort as he made his way back to the dining room, ready to finally enjoy his breakfast. The dining room stood empty. Byron blinked. Perhaps he had misheard. "Jarvis!" he boomed.
"Yes, my lord?"
"Where is my breakfast?" Byron demanded, his voice rising in disbelief. "Where is the quiche?"
Jarvis paled slightly. "The quiche, my lord? It appears missing."
"Missing?" Byron sputtered. "What do you mean, missing? A quiche cannot simply vanish into thin air." This was an outrage. Byron's face turned a shade of red that rivaled his hunting jacket. This called for an investigation, a proper investigation. Inspector Wesley Moore, a man of sharp wit and even sharper observation, arrived within the hour. The grand house loomed before him, its imposing structure casting long shadows in the late afternoon sun. Moore, known for his meticulous nature and unparalleled deductive skills, stepped out of his car, his trench coat billowing slightly in the breeze. He had been called upon for many peculiar cases, but this one promised to be particularly intriguing. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, swept over the opulent dining room, lingering on the empty space on the table. The room was a testament to luxury, with its crystal chandeliers and polished silverware. Yet, amidst all this grandeur, it was the conspicuous absence of a single dish that caught his attention. The missing quiche, a seemingly trivial matter, had caused quite a stir. "A missing quiche, you say?" Inspector Moore's voice was dry as he addressed Lord Byron. The aristocrat, with his impeccable attire and stern demeanour, seemed genuinely distressed. Moore had seen many reactions in his career, but the intensity of Byron's concern over a quiche was unusual. "An outrage," Byron fumed. "My favourite quiche vanished." His voice echoed through the grand hall, a mix of anger and disbelief. The quiche, it seemed, was not just any dish, but a cherished culinary masterpiece, crafted with care and precision. "Indeed," Moore murmured, taking in the scene. He knew that in cases like these, the smallest details often held the most significant clues. The dining room, with its lavish decor, was now a crime scene, and every element within it was a potential piece of the puzzle. He surveyed the staff assembled before him. Jarvis, the impeccable butler, a man of few words but known for his unwavering loyalty and precision. Jarvis stood tall, his expression unreadable, but Moore knew better than to take anything at face value. Mrs. O'Malley, the cook, wringing her hands, her distress was palpable. She had been in charge of the kitchen for years, and the thought of a missing dish under her watch was unbearable. Tom, the burly chauffeur, stood nearby, his rugged appearance contrasting sharply with the refined surroundings. And even Mr. Henderson, the carpenter, who had been repairing the banister. Each of them had a role to play in the household, and each had their own secrets. Moore's task was to unravel these secrets and find the truth hidden beneath the surface. This was no ordinary theft. This was a culinary crime of passion. The missing quiche was more than just food. It was a symbol of something deeper, a sentiment that resonated with everyone in the house. Moore could sense the tension in the air, the unspoken words and hidden glances, and Inspector Moore intended to get to the bottom of it. With a determined glint in his eye, he began his investigation, knowing that every clue, no matter how small, would bring him closer to solving the mystery. The game was afoot, and Moore was ready to uncover the truth behind the missing quiche. Jarvis, his face a mask of practiced indifference, answered Inspector Moore's questions with unwavering politeness. "Did you see anyone enter the dining room after the quiche was placed on the table?" Moore inquired.
No, sir, I was attending to the silver in the pantry, Jarvis responded smoothly.
Moore's eyes narrowed. The pantry? An ideal location to dispose of evidence. Jarvis's composure never wavered, but Inspector Moore knew better than to trust appearances. Everyone had secrets. The question was, would Jarvis's secret turn out to be a slice of missing quiche? Section 5, The Cook's Confession.
It was a masterpiece, Inspector. My finest quiche. I had spent hours perfecting the recipe, ensuring every ingredient was just right. Flaky crust, the perfect custard. The aroma filled the kitchen, a symphony of flavors waiting to be savored.
Tears welled up in her eyes, a mix of pride and sorrow. She had poured her heart into that quiche.
Where did you leave it after you finished baking? The inspector's voice was calm but probing.
Inspector Moore interrupted gently, trying to piece together the events of that fateful afternoon. He needed facts, not a recipe. The details were crucial to solving the mystery.
On the cooling rack, sir, by the window. Just for a moment. I thought it would be safe there, to fetch the parsley from the garden. It was only a few steps away, but when I returned it was gone.
A window left unattended, curtains fluttering in the breeze. It seemed like an innocent oversight. An easy escape route for a hungry thief. The perfect opportunity for someone to snatch the quiche. But was it too obvious? The inspector's mind raced with possibilities. Had Mrs. O'Malley been too clever by half, attempting to misdirect the investigation? Or was there another layer to this culinary mystery? The inspector knew he had to dig deeper to uncover the truth hidden beneath the surface of this seemingly simple confession. Mrs. O'Malley's anxiety was palpable, but was it the anxiety of guilt or the fear of being wrongfully accused? A small clue, perhaps overlooked, could be the key to unraveling the mystery. The inspector's eyes scanned the kitchen, searching for that one piece of evidence that would make everything clear. The conversation continued, each word weighed carefully, each gesture scrutinized. The truth was there, hidden in the details, waiting to be discovered. Section 6. Secrets in the ballroom. The ballroom, usually alive with music and laughter, felt strangely silent and ominous under the weight of suspicion. Inspector Moore ran a gloved hand along the plush velvet curtains. "Have you noticed anything unusual, Mr. Henderson?"
Can't say I have, Inspector. Though this house is full of surprises, secret passages, hidden rooms.
A secret passage, intriguing, and leading where? To the kitchen, perhaps? Or to a hidden chamber where a quiche-loving fiend might be hiding their prize?
Quiche isn't really my thing, Inspector. Give me a good steak and ale pie any day.
"But you were here this morning," Inspector Moore pressed, his eyes never leaving the carpenter's face. "You had ample opportunity."
Aye, but I was in the West Wing fixing that leaky skylight. You can ask Mrs. O'Malley, she saw me.
A solid alibi, or so it seemed. Yet Inspector Moore knew that things were not always as they appeared. He had a nagging feeling, a sense that something wasn't quite right.
Didn't see nothing, Inspector. Was out back polishing the Bentley.
The Bentley, you say? Inspector Moore's eyes glinted. He had noticed the car was spotless, suspiciously spotless. A greasy handprint marred the Bentley's door handle. The same type of grease used in the kitchen, perhaps? Had Tom underestimated the inspector's attention to detail? The garage, usually filled with the scent of motor oil and leather, now held the scent of something else, something savory. Inspector Moore's sharp eyes landed on a crumpled napkin discarded near the workbench. He carefully picked it up, his gloved fingers avoiding the greasy stain that marked its center. As he unfolded it, a small, flaky crumb tumbled out, a quiche crumb. The evidence was undeniable, but what was it doing in the garage? All the clues were finally pointing to one inescapable conclusion. Inspector Moore gathered the suspects back in the dining room. He could see the guilt, the anticipation, the fear etched on their faces. He cleared his throat, ready to unmask the culprit. "The thief," he announced, drawing out the suspense, "is..." He paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. The dog. Yes, the dog. Bruno, Lord Byron's bulldog, had a penchant for fine dining. It seemed the lure of a freshly baked quiche had proven too tempting to resist. The case of the missing quiche was solved.